All right. We are unexperienced recording crew here. So this is the analytics instrumentation sync on the 14th of November. And I don't know, should we just go through it? There's some read-onlys and stuff.
Yeah, Tanuj left a link to a recording for 16.7 features, just for awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess she will go through those. Doesn't she usually go through them on the next, like this, the next meeting, the meeting next week? Or is that what she's doing in this video? I don't know.
Oh, milestone has started, as far as I understand. So she just gave overview of the features.
Okay.
Features list, yeah.
Okay. Cool. And I left a note that I'll be out of office next week. I expect it to be the whole week, but I'm not completely sure. I also left the next point on the agenda. Yeah, let me just present it as I intended it and not read it out loud. Now, I was kind of a couple of times last week doing reviews. I think it was mostly me conducting reviews for merge request from outside the team. Yeah, but actually there was also something that I was implementing where I was like going down, working on something, and turned out I misunderstood something, and it was not really a technical thing, but more like a domain specific thing. So I thought maybe other people would also get confused or kind of have the same, make the same misunderstanding. So my idea would be to kind of present these misunderstandings of, I don't know, misunderstandings has such a bad, like it's more like a negative term. So I tried to frame it as when we learn something new, I kind of discover how like limitations or whatever that is kind of different from what we thought. And then to kind of bring them up. And I think it can just be read only unless we have extra time on the calls, on the sync calls. And hopefully other people could learn, or maybe just get reminded about how things are. Yeah. I also left a couple of examples, but I don't know, maybe, I don't know if you have some ideas. We can do a remix of the idea. I don't know. I don't have any strong opinions about the format. I just thought it would be good to kind of tell each other what we learned.
But that's interesting information. Thanks for that. What do you think about updating our documentation? Because personally, myself, I'll forget it probably 5 minutes after the call. But if we just put it in our Snowplow docs, just to update taxonometry, I think we believe call it. Yeah. So next time I'll work on something
yeah. Sorry to interrupt. So you suggest that's about the second one with the namespace user and project, or which one were you? Is it kind of both of the? I listed two things.
Just to maybe check the wording that we have in taxonometry and make sure maybe some accents are properly, like for example, user is a current user triggered an event, just to make sure it's not just a current user, but who is triggered or accent is here.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. I would still suggest that we kind of bring it up kind of in here, because I wouldn't have thought of what you just said now. I think that's totally the right idea. It's totally the right thing to do. But I also know that when I work on something, I wouldn't go read the taxonomy, because I wasn't even in doubt about this thing. So I think that's kind of the benefit of being reminded of things. It's kind of like it's kind of push-based new information, instead of you, like, if you're in doubt, obviously you go try to find the source, or you look in the source code, or find an old issue or something. But if you're not really in doubt, you didn't even consider this other thing to be an option.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, that's a cool idea. I would suggest do the boss just to make a quick like summary, and then just link to a proposal for update documentation.
No, but I think it would be a great outcome if somebody said they learned something, and somebody were like, oh yeah, we should totally update that over here, or put that in here. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I agree. I was about to suggest the same thing. Just let's do both. Let's raise awareness in a call, but at the same time, let's put that into docs for posterity. So yeah, it seems like a really good idea. I really like it.
What about you, Sarah? Do you want to say something? Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That's fine.
I think it is totally fair to bring up that like our implicit assumptions are often wrong, and we need to make them explicit. And I think this is like one of those things. I actually think that Piotr's next topic is a really similar thing of, here's this thing that like there's a question on that maybe we didn't document great the first time around, and everyone could have interpreted a different way. But in 2 weeks, if he'd have just like gone forward without asking the question, he'd probably have an item for the this week I learned section of the agenda. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, thanks. I actually, that kind of reminds me of a thing I wanted to say, because I think also the way so for example, on internal, like basically on all the things we work on, since we're not working on it, like each of us are not working on it all the time, things are evolving without us knowing. And I know that I don't go read the documentation or all the merge requests that happens on some part of the system since last time I worked, that happened since last time I worked there. Right. So it could, for example, now, Nico, with this thing that you worked on with the anonymous user, where we kind of changed the we changed the behavior of internal events if you don't provide a required parameter. Basically, we just don't update that metric, but we'll update other metrics that are kind of defined on the same event. And that this is a new thing. So so I think some people could come in, work on something, and be like, hey, wait a second, I didn't know about this, because they were not involved in either the review or the work on this issue.
Well, I would say that when features getting developed and changed quite rapidly, it's pretty difficult to keep everything updated, and because especially if a few developers working on the same feature, and since the code is readable and we have test coverage, or if you don't know behavior, you can check specs, and if you do something silly, the specs will just fail, and then you just get. I mean, it's all complex, right? It cannot be everything in ideal state at any amount of time. Sometimes a little bit of depth introduced, but if we keep in mind that to bring it back to the manageable state, right? If at least if it's planned within Epic, then I think it's fine, right? We just keep it under control anyway.
Yeah, I think for this example, I was more thinking about a scenario where, let's say I get a review on something, or somebody pings me because they need to implement something. And if I was not aware of the change, that the conceptual change that happened around this unique metric not being updated, but total counts being still being updated, so a scenario I could see happen is I will explain something that is based on a truth from the past, but it's no longer true because I wasn't aware this thing developed. And if I then realize that I was kind of wrong, not like at this point in time it's no longer true. I think that would be a good time to also tell the team, is like, hey, I actually realized things changed since I looked at this the last time, and it might happen to you as well. That might be the same for you. Yeah.
Something the ops department like did is have weekly like recap. Here's what the team did this week issues every week. Does Analyze have that? Are we in ops? No, we're dev. No, we're analyze. Are we a top level thing? I don't know. But it kind of sounds like we just don't have as much visibility as we could into what everyone is doing and why at any given time, and like what stuff actually changed. And weekly, like, hey, here's what happened, could be useful on that front.
We used to have it. We used to have a bot in the channel, and it would ping and just give update for the current work instead of just giving retrospective what's happened, like we have now, like plans for next week and so on, or victories. But we kind of decided to split it between async or synchronization like now, and retrospective. So this kind of process is will keep changing, but now it's like this, yeah. Yeah, we can have an action point, probably an agenda, just to next time try to bring more like a current work, just go through, like. But then what we've seen is sometimes getting out of control, and you know, it can get very long. That's the main problem, I think, always arises every time we try it.
Yeah, updates do tend to be best in an asynchronous format, because like it's not going to change whether you're talking about it synchronously or not. So
at some point we try to kind of ask everyone to record a short video within a minute, just to do a presentation, what's happening during the week. We can try it again or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember why did we stop doing that.
actually, these sorts of like this week I learned things that like basically caused a sticking point or a trouble spot. It does make sense for them to go in the retro issue.
Could you say that again?
I think it does make sense for these sorts of things to go in the retro issue. Because like it's a thing that caused friction that could have gone smoother, and having other people have visibility into it is valuable.
Yeah, actually, when I think about it, this really is suited more for a retro. But then there's this yes, some updates about what got me confused and what could be improved, but I suppose some could be more of a this is what you should know about my recent changes, and the difference is a little bit thin, I suppose.
I think it's which side of the the code are you on? Of if you're
Yeah, I
giving an
guess.
FYI that something has changed and everyone else needs to know it, it goes in the team sync. If something changed you didn't know and it caused a problem, it goes in the retro.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Should we move on, or yeah, the next one is yours, Piotr.
Thanks. So I'm migrating the first total count metric to internal events, and I'm wondering what the structure of the events key in metric definitions is planned to be, because I have to put Redis key somewhere, and I don't really understand how this structure is going to look like in the future. And we have event names as an array, because there might be multiple events triggering this particular metric. But then we've got the metadata of unique attributes for unique counts, and I'm trying to wrap my head around how this is going to look in the future. I think Jonas, you probably know the most about that.
Yeah, so I left a comment on the issue, but we probably have updated the description. I think we shouldn't put it in the metrics definitions, but instead in the event definition.
So event definitions are going to supersede what do we have in the metric definitions?
Yeah, I think
how does
so.
this work?
Currently, when we in internal events, we define, we've kind of implicitly defined events by mentioning them in the event section of the metric definition. And so we kind of have the event name and the unique property, and that was kind of the only place it was mentioned. But just as of today, you were reviewing that the event definitions are now required for internal events metric. So that means we have an event definition. Currently, we're not really using it for anything in internal events, because the only thing we need to know is, does the event exist? And then we need the unique keys, the unique property, which is related to the metric. Right? But I think the Redis key So it's basically the address for keeping track of the total count of this event. Right. I think that's fair to put that on the event in the event definition itself.
Oh, well, I don't know, because it doesn't really relate to an event itself, but rather to a particular metric.
So I think so. For example, if we had aggregate metrics on total counts, I don't know if that would make sense. Right. Then like you could imagine having several metrics defined on the same event. Couldn't you? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, theoretically, yeah.
I mean, okay. For example, this is kind of abstract discussion, but if we already had total counts with timeframes, right? Then it would be very common to have several metrics defined on the same total count, because it would be with different timeframes.
Right.
So I think if there was kind of a prefix related, like a Redis prefix related to that, I think that would make sense to add it to the event definition.
What I'm going to add as Redis key is going to be probably used only for legacy metrics anyway. So
I have a question.
Yep.
Is the Redis key we're using not derivable from the existing attributes that we've already defined for the metric? Like, do we need to put it someplace?
Yeah, we do, because it's actually arbitrary and different from the other attributes. And now we have a new instrumentation class for the total count metrics. That has a that does give a default name, but we want to override that name for legacy metrics, so we don't have to migrate them to new keys, if that makes sense. Right. So yeah, what you say, Jonas, makes sense, but this is not gonna be used in new metrics, I guess. So I'm not sure if this makes sense to include this in the event definitions. Because it's gonna be tied to one particular metric anyway. Yeah, okay, but I'll dive a little bit more into how event definitions work, and I try to figure it out.
I think it's more connected to the event definition or to the event, but maybe we can also talk about it. Yeah, I'm happy to to discuss or listen to whatever
I probably
arguments
write
we
about
have in both. Yeah, that's fine.
in the channel.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right. Thanks. Do we have anything more?
Yeah,
Just
Nico has one.
just a small point from me. We recently had a problem with the version app when a few changes from staging would be deployed to production without verification for each of the deployment to staging. And I just made a proposal to using Slack channel to synchronize the verification process and when we can deploy. So just please take a look. We're at the final stage of accepting this proposal. So if you have any inputs or ideas, just please leave comment. Well, seems like that is it on agenda today. I'll just stop recording.